Chapter 81. The Light That Guides You, the Only Sun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 81. The Light That Guides You, the Only Sun. My relationship with Eros, of course, is only that of mother and son, and as for the relationship with the king of God Uranus, this is well known to all the gods. Aphrodite's eyes flickered as if she wanted to avoid Apollo's gaze. But no matter how she dodged, that handsome face full of androgyny still calmly surfaced in front of her eyes. Her heart was pounding. Suddenly, a hand gently brushed her flawless cheek, like caressing delicate enamel, as gentle and light. The texture of the rubbing and the temperature of the fingertips made Aphrodite's eyes tremble and her face flush. "You. What are you doing?" she asked in a cold voice. "You are the wife I am about to welcome, and I am the husband you are about to marry. What do you think I am going to do?" Apollo said lightly. At the same time, his face was full of smiles. It is said that marriage is loyal, love is changeable, and the goddess of love and beauty is the most dissolute among the goddesses. How can I feel that you are still a young child and have no interest at all? You. Aphrodite's beautiful eyes opened wide. Her face was red as she looked at the handsome face with dazzling golden hair and radiant eyes in front of her, wanting to say something but unable to say anything. At this time, Apollo lightly sighed. "Look at your appearance, also dare to say is a flower veteran, deception technology also cannot, really do not know how to fool so many male gods." "Humph, not only other male gods, once you see my appearance, you also lose your brain clean," Aphrodite grunted coldly, seemingly displeased with Apollo's assessment of her. Having gained a foothold for many years in a place as divine as Olympus, taking advantage of numerous male gods without being taken advantage of halfway was the deed she was most proud of. She didn't expect to find herself in Apollo's mouth. She was very unpleasant to look at. This was impossible to bear. But when she heard that Apollo understood that she was not as slutty as she appeared, she could not help but feel warmth in her heart. "You have some vision." Suddenly, Apollo's voice turned cold. "If you're a child, don't pretend to be a mother. You didn't give birth to Eros, and you're not born from the bloodline of Uranus. Tell me, what exactly is your origin?" "You. Don't force me." Aphrodite stood there stiffly, her beautiful cheeks covered with pleading. "Force you? How can you call it forcing between husband and wife? This is frank and honest." Apollo smiled and stepped closer to her. Aphrodite couldn't help but step back. Apollo took a step forward, and she took a step back. In this way, she gradually retreated into the corner of the wall of the great hall. The light in the center of the hall was blocked by the blonde figure in front of her, firmly blocked. In the dark corner, she uneasily wrapped her arms around her chest with a pair of clear and bright eyes, staring dead ahead. Finally, the handsome figure came closer. In the narrow corner, she could even feel the gentle breath of the other party. Her cheeks turned red, and Aphrodite's eyes could not help but flow crystal tears, sobbing. "Why do you all want to force me? Why? I just want to take Eros and live a good life. In the past, in the ocean, there were many gods who coveted my beauty, so I had to come to Olympus to seek refuge. To Olympus, the gods here are also coveting me one by one. Well, in consideration of the King of God, no one dares to use force on me. I only use them, step by step, to obtain the position of the main god. I thought that after becoming the main god, I should never be bullied again, but Ares, Hermes, and the others, always tried to get their hands on me, and the King of Gods was also unkind, leading the Queen of God to always target me. When we first met, I thought you were a different kind of god from them, but I didn't expect you to come and bully me too. I shouldn't have looked like this, and then I would never be bullied again." Looking at the beautiful figure holding her head and crying in the corner, Apollo couldn't help but be stunned. Pause in a place, he kindly laughed. "But I did too, domineering. You are not easy, it was not easy. The gods of Olympus were all one big family, except she wasn't related to any of them. The most important thing was to have a child who was immature in mind but had a particularly trouble-prone weapon like the golden arrow of love. Mount Olympus had never been a peaceful paradise. Especially for pretty goddesses. Are you leaving? Just as Apollo turned to look out, a low, trembling voice suddenly came from behind him. Like the cry of a bewildered little girl in the darkness of the night. When he turned, he whispered. Forcing my wife, who is not yet married, does not show what I am capable of, so let's talk about it later. Looking out at night, he was about to walk out. Suddenly, he felt someone hug him from behind. What are you doing? Don't go. I was just wrong. You are still much better than the other gods. Aphrodite's head pressed against his back, the corners of her eyes clang, leaving teardrops, and the shirt on Apollo's back was soon wet. But Aphrodite still refused to let go. Looking outside the sparse starlight, she held tightly while murmuring. In the day when I was born, I was a little girl. In the time when I was born, I always liked to look at the starlight outside like this, with Eros, who was a ball of light at that time. A ball of light. Don't you want to ask where I came from with Eros? Indeed, he is not my son, he should be considered my brother or elder brother. Both he and I were begun in a mass of light, but then that mass of light was divided into two pieces, one large and one small, and I was the small one, and Eros was the large one, probably with less power, so I was born before Eros. Later, I learned that the light ball is a primordial god after death. It seems that the primordial rank of the gods, after death, can be turned into a light ball and can be reborn in this way. The light group was discovered by the original king of God, Uranus, for some purpose. Uranus did not destroy the light group, but split the light group into two groups to contain the rebirth of this main god, while for future use. Since my birth, I have been imprisoned by him along with the light mass of Eros in the depths of the ocean until he was stripped of his king of God authority, and the seal he set was automatically lifted, so I was able to escape with Eros. Later, Eros was also born in the light mass. He inherited most of the power of that main god, only incomplete in himself, plus the rebirth of the loss of memory and even affects the mind of, so completely forget the past. After hearing her words, Apollo was silent for a long time. Finally, he suddenly said. When I was imprisoned, it was even darker than this night, right? Aphrodite was stunned, and only after a long time did she look at the sky outside and murmured. Yes, only the light of Eros emitted a little light, and that was the only thing that kept me alive during that time. You will no longer be afraid of the darkness because I am the god of light. I will be in front of you to guide you in the dark. Apollo gently brushed her hair, his golden eyes gazing into the distant sky. At this moment, it was still dark. But Aphrodite saw the light. The light that belonged to her life. The reconstruction of Olympus was soon completed. Then Zeus gave the order to enthrone Apollo as the vice-ruler of the divine court. This news shook the ocean and the underworld. In contrast, the subsequent marriage between the god of light and the goddess of beauty did not have such a big response. But for Aphrodite, this was a new beginning in her life. I will be your wife and accompany you in the pursuit of eternity in immortality. You are the sun in the sky, destined to shine on every being that needs light. But I will be the only night waiting for you to bring a new dawn. On her wedding night, she looked tenderly at her golden-eyed, handsome, and elegant husband beside her and silently made the vows of her heart. She knew she might not be the only one for him, and she might not be the first of many. But as the sun shines on every living being. That's not unique to the sun. But for the life that was sown with warmth and light. The sun was the only one. Chapter 82. The New God. Level Treasure Chest. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 82. The New God. Level Treasure Chest. Come on, open your mouth. Hearing the gentle voice coming into his ears, Apollo opened his mouth slightly. At once, a peeled, sweet and silky grape was put into his mouth. After chewing gently, he opened his eyes leisurely. Look at the bright sunshine above and the sweet smile of Aphrodite in the sunshine. The soft spring breeze brushed the vast land like a lover's hand caressing everyone's cheek with affection. Life after a new marriage was always full of sweetness. The life of the vice-ruler of the divine court was like the song of the muse. Erato, you just sang that part out of tune, do it again. Apollo's eyes glared at a beautiful maiden with a golden band around her head, who was one of the 9 muses. Hearing Apollo's rebuke, the maiden defended aggressively, "It's not because you two are showing love in front of us that distracted me." Well, what Sister Erato said is right. The other 8 muses on the other side nodded like chickens pecking at rice. They looked at Aphrodite, who was poised and full of sweetness, with an unkind gaze. Since Apollo became the vice-ruler of the divine court, Zeus divided these 9 daughters, who could sing and dance well, into Apollo's subordinate gods so that he could be well trained. According to Apollo's malicious speculation, Zeus wanted to corrupt his will with an extravagant life. But since they were divided into his hands, as the gods of music and art, he still appreciates the 9 literary girls. So and leisure called over to teach. But these 9 lively girls, obviously in other places to perform, were very good. In front of his face, they frequently did mistakes, which made Apollo puzzled. In front of such a handsome and elegant young man like you, brother Apollo, how can we have the heart to think about other things? We didn't feel it before, but now seeing you being gentle with Sister Aphrodite makes our hearts ripple even more. My God, I'm inspired. I will write a poem of light and beauty, and sing it on Olympus, earth, and sea. Sing it on. In the midst of the chatter, the muses sang and danced with exaggerated expressions. Aphrodite giggled and said, "Apollo, you guys are really interesting. You are all very pure girls. I think they like you very much. Do you want to invite them together one night?" Apollo gave her a blank look and signaled for another grape. Aphrodite peeled the grapes while asking, "Where are we going to play next?" Her beautiful face was full of anticipation. Since her marriage, she found that Apollo liked to travel around, in the sky, earth, and sea, as if looking for some treasure, like playing. During this period, she followed the tour of many beautiful places and deeply felt that her previous life was so boring. Heaven and earth were vast and vast, always idle in the small Olympus, with simply no meaning. The previous self did not know how to live. Good thing we have him now. Aphrodite gazed tenderly at the golden figure bathed in sunlight. Hearing her question, Apollo silently opened the system map. During this period, he appeared to be traveling around but was searching for treasure chests scattered around the world. Only later did he gradually discover that Aphrodite really liked the life of travel and took her with him more often. During this period, primary and intermediate treasure chests were opened a lot, but there were only 2 high-level treasure chests, none of which were particularly good, barely allowing my divine power to reach the 8th rank of the Divine Lord. In addition, the first stage of etheric divine body is almost completed. I can now kill a divine lord with one punch, and a little further is the etheric body shaking the primordial gods as well. I hope a god-rank treasure chest can be refreshed. Then I will reach the original primordial realm soon. Thinking like this, Apollo turned his gaze to the system map. Suddenly, his face changed. What's wrong with you?" Aphrodite looked at her husband in surprise. "Nothing." Apollo blinked his eyes. But in his heart, he muttered, "For so many years, I've only seen a god-grade treasure chest once. Now how to refresh 2 at once?" Then he pondered. "One in the ocean, one in the underworld, the location is not good, which one should be taken first?" "Apollo, have you heard, recently the king of gods and a mortal princess named Semele good, and then the queen of gods secretly killed her. This would not have been an unusual thing, but Semele died pregnant with a child. You know what happened to that child?" Aphrodite said with a face full of interest. "I guess the child didn't die and was brought back to life somehow by that father god of mine." Apollo stretched lazily. Aphrodite nodded. Yes, the king of gods sewed the child into his lap, using his blood warming, preserved his life, and is said to be recently born. Speaking of this poor child, also counted as a blessing, originally his mother was only mortal, he will be born only demigod, now after the king of gods bloodline warming, after birth is bound to be a main god, you will have another brother and sister, Aphrodite said softly. His birth experience can be compared to Athena's. He may be a god no less than Athena in the future, Apollo responded indifferently, but his gaze steeply looked outside. Suddenly, a nymph came in and said, Lord Apollo, Goddess Amphitrite is outside with Prince Triton, asking to visit you. Goddess Amphitrite, the Queen of Sea. Aphrodite's beautiful eyes flickered a few times. I remember Apollo, you said that you had some friends with her before. What's she going to do today? Invite her in, and we'll see. Apollo calmly stood up and stood in the middle of the garden, his golden eyes gazing into the distance. It did not take long for the dignified Amphitrite, with her son Triton, to come walking slowly. Seeing Aphrodite from afar, she smiled and said, I have heard that you have married the beautiful Aphrodite, and now I have the opportunity to come and congratulate you. Aphrodite responded with a sweet smile. The goddess Amphitrite is the queen of sea, things are always very much. Thank you for your blessing on our marriage. So saying, she noticed that the atmosphere was a little strange and took the initiative to go inside. Apollo, I'll go prepare some tea. You keep the goddess Amphitrite and Prince Triton company first. Seeing her leave, Amphitrite smiled with light eyes. Aphrodite is a caring wife, Apollo. You are very lucky. So she said, her face gradually serious. Looking at her and Triton, Apollo said silently. You came to me this time, is for the matter of the sea. I know the situation there is very tense. Amphitrite's face was suddenly solemn. Taking her son's hand, she suddenly said directly. Kneel. The beautiful-looking ocean prince, known as the mermaid, immediately fell to his knees in front of Apollo. Then Amphitrite also knelt down directly. Apollo was surprised to see the two, although he had foreseen this scene, he was still a little surprised. Apollo, you are now the vice-ruler of the divine court and have the power to intervene in the affairs of the ocean. I hope you can help me. Amphitrite's tone was very grave, with a prayer. Golden eyes, deep and flashing, Apollo said in a deep voice. The situation of the ocean has reached such a point. It is definitely more serious than you think. Amphitrite's voice was low, pulling her son, the last time Typhon's rebellion, my husband Poseidon tried to take advantage of the opportunity to go ashore and seize the throne of the gods, but was stopped by the main god of the sea Pontos. Pontus is one of the oldest gods in the world, the brother of the original king of gods, Uranus, the original ocean lord. Although his strength is not as strong as Uranus, but also the closest to the original existence. Even with the authority of the Sea Emperor, my husband was unable to take him down. And after that battle, the ocean's already tense situation was completely and utterly detonated. My father, Oceanus, joined forces with Pontos, and together they went to war with my husband. And to gain the support of Earth Mother Gaia and win this war, my husband has decided to re-establish himself and the son of Earth Mother Ante as the new prince of the sea. The beautiful face of the Queen of Sea was filled with the color of despair, and she held her son in a deadly embrace. Now I am in the most awkward position. No matter who wins this war, Triton and I will be the complete losers. Now I have neither the support of my mother's clan nor my position in my husband's divine system, so I can only come to beg you. After the graceful ocean, elegant cheeks tilted up high, full of pleading, said. Please, in the name of vice-ruler of the divine court, on behalf of Olympus, participate in this ocean warfare, and become the supporter behind me and Triton. Chapter 83. I would like to serve you as king. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 83. I would like to serve you as king. Under the brilliant sunlight, Apollo stood silent. Golden eyes faintly gazed at the distant sky with an eternal depth. In front of him, the knelt Amphitrite, snow-white cheeks filled with anxiety, beautiful eyes almost overflowing with tears. Next to her, Triton was timidly bowing her head, not daring to look around. After a long silence, Apollo finally said, "Amphitrite, though we are allies, we do not help each other for free. If I do this for you, what can you give me?" Seeing that, he finally responded, "With your current status, you can't be a good friend." Amphitrite was quite relieved, silver teeth lightly biting her lips. "With your current position, and my situation, I cannot give you much, but as long as you help me through this difficult time, I can give you more in the future." "I'd like to hear that." Amphitrite's eyes shone brightly, and at this moment, she went from just like a sad wife abandoned by her husband back to the old days after the ocean of deep wisdom. Gazing at the golden figure in front of her, she slowly said, "Although my current position is very embarrassing, after all, I have been the queen of sea for many years, the gods under Poseidon, half of the heart is still to my side. As long as you help me win this war, I can collect the gods under my father, those are my brothers and sisters, and they are naturally my wing. In this way, after the ocean is settled, there will be half of the gods will be my supporters with my son, and with your help outside with Athena and the Lord of the Stars, I will be able to gradually hollow out Poseidon or even replace him." Speaking of this, she used bright eyes to stare deeply at Apollo and said in a low voice, "I know that sooner or later you and Zeus will have a showdown, to decide the new king of gods of the throne. At that time, I will lead the power of the entire ocean as your supporter. And when you become the new king of gods, I will lead all the ocean gods to submit to your divine court, and the ocean will hence be just a part of Olympus, instead of the current 3 kings standing side by side, and you will be the only king." Amphitrite offered such conditions that even surprised the Apollo. This queen of sea had good courage. 3 generations since the divine court, the ocean had always been independent under the rule of the king of God. Especially the current Olympus divine court, Poseidon and Hades, each claimed to be the king, the sole leader of the divine system. There had never been the king of God who could take the ocean completely into his jurisdiction. If it was true what Amphitrite said after he overthrew Zeus, the new divine court would no longer have a sea god system, only the sea gods appointed by the king of God. "And you don't need to worry that I will deceive you and break my word later." Amphitrite gazed at her son, who was still cowardly and bowed down beside her, and sighed quietly, "Triton simply cannot become a king, he will only be your enthroned puppet, and we cannot betray you." "Betrayal?" Apollo laughed softly, "We are just a partnership. We have not become a king and a subject. How can we talk about betrayal?" So saying, he slowly looked into the distance, his voice low. "I will go to the ocean to participate in the battle. You go back first." "Thank you, Apollo." Amphitrite abruptly lowered her head, bowed, and led her son away with quick steps. Shortly after they left, Aphrodite came out and asked, "Are the goddesses Amphitrite and the maidens gone?" Apollo nodded. "What did you talk about?" Aphrodite wondered. "I saw that she just had a sad look in her eyes, and she brought Triton with herself." "About her giving me her sisters as a wife," Apollo said with a chuckle. Aphrodite gave him a blank look. "She has 3,000 sisters, you can't take care of them all." "Yes, her 3,000 sisters together are not 1/10th as beautiful as you alone, I'd a better look after you." Apollo smiled. Aphrodite's cheeks suddenly reddened, and she laughed angrily. "I think you and Hecate and the girls also said the same thing." "Huh, I have to go see someone now," Apollo said to her. "What person?" Aphrodite asked. "A goddess." "Is it beautiful?" "Beautiful. As beautiful as I am." "A little less, but smarter than you." "You keep calling me stupid, huh? I'm angry." "Once again, I came to the temple of the goddess of wisdom, and this time I was greeted by Nike, the goddess of victory. But the good thing was that this goddess with beautiful wings, this time, did not dare to stop Apollo from anything. There was even a little fear in her eyes. Looking at the radiant and beautiful wings on her back, Apollo realized something. The image of him tearing up Hermes' wings was probably too bloody and scared the goddess, who also had wings. Entering Athena's quarters, the goddess of wisdom sat quietly at a table, reading a book. A light red dress, set off by a slender and upright posture, bright eyes quietly gazing at the book, the body emitting a faint fragrance. Sensing the sound of footsteps outside, she said lightly. "You're here. You knew I was coming. I also know that you have just met the goddess Amphitrite." "Indeed." Apollo's mouth curved, and he walked up to her with his handsome cheek close to her eyes. "You told her to come to me like that, and you taught her those words about emptying Poseidon and mastering the oceans, the same as what you said against Zeus last time. I didn't want to hide it from you, otherwise, I wouldn't have left such an obvious breach." Athena quietly closed the book in her hand and raised her beautiful cheeks full of light. The two faces were very close to each other. So close that they could feel each other's breath and see the details of every pore on each other's face. Gazing for a while, Athena suddenly laughed. "Have you not blessed your new marriage with Aphrodite? With her beauty, it is rare that you still have time to wander around. Of course, she is very beautiful, but in terms of wisdom and temperament, it is far worse than you." "I still like you have the substance," Apollo said lightly. Athena blinked her bright eyes. "You such love words to deceive Aphrodite and Hecate they can, in my case, is less meaningful. Then how can I shock the heart of the goddess of wisdom?" Apollo asked. "In this world, the only thing that can shock the deepest wisdom is a deeper wisdom and the strongest power that can override everything." Listening to these words, Apollo's face suddenly flashed with a touch of playfulness. "Why do I get the impression that you are implying that you like to be used by force? The use of force also depends on the object. A beautiful girl, if used by some bad god with force, will struggle vigorously. But if she is forced by a handsome prince, perhaps she will not struggle but will actively meet." Athena said with interest, completely without any aspects of the ordinary goddess's shyness about these aspects, as if she was just discussing some philosophical issue. "The temperament of the goddess of wisdom is not comparable to ordinary goddesses." Apollo sighed softly. Then he sat down and asked, "How do you see the current situation of the ocean?" In the small room, Athena curbed her smile and became serious. "The situation of the ocean, the key point is not in Poseidon, Oceanus, Pontos, the three kings, but in Earth Mother Gaia. Pontus and Oceanus are both sons of Earth's mother, Gaia. Poseidon and Earth Mother are lovers of each other, but in essence, Earth Mother has also given birth to children for Pontos. Since the 3 generations of the divine court, the one who controls the situation of the ocean has never been anyone else but the main god, the Earth Mother." With a thoughtful look on her face, she continued. "I just don't understand, the most solid figure in this world is the triangle. The ocean power is divided into 3, obviously more suitable for her to secretly control the situation. Now why she wants to detonate the war of the ocean, let the ocean back to unity. Oceanus aside, Poseidon and Pontos are not simple characters, they may have various connections with the Earth Mother, but when either of them completes the unification of the ocean, they will never be willing to become the Earth Mother's puppet. Actually, Goddess Amphitrite's worries are a bit unnecessary. Although her situation is embarrassing, even if her husband falls to Earth Mother now, as long as the war is won in the future, he will definitely turn around and eliminate the influence of Earth Mother." Listening to her anatomy of the ocean situation, Apollo said in a deep voice. "In other words, my opponent in the ocean this time is never Pontos and the others, but Earth Mother Gaia. What, are you afraid?" Athena smiled and gazed at him. Lifting his golden eyes, Apollo looked into the distance and said lightly. "I heard that when our God Father uses the power of the King of God, his strength is not weaker than any main god. I have fought with him several times, and this time I want to see what kind of rank the real main god is." Chapter 84. Apollo decided to help Sea Emperor Poseidon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 84. Apollo decided to help Sea Emperor Poseidon. Well, Apollo asked to go to the ocean to help Poseidon. In the empty temple of gods and kings, hearing this news, Zeus could not help but lock his eyebrows. Hera sat next to him and calmly said, "What's wrong with that? Since he wants to go, then let him go, anyway, better than letting him stay in Olympus, every day in front of us better. What do you know?" Zeus' face was grim. Gazing into the distance, he said in a low voice, "Now is the tensest time of the ocean situation. Pontos and Oceanus teamed up against Poseidon. This battle will determine the unity of the ocean, the competition for the real Lord of Sea. All along, in the entire divine court, it is Olympus' strength is the strongest. But it does not mean that the ocean and the underworld are weak, just that each has its problems. Hades is the gods are scarce, and Hades is not willing to give birth to a large number of children themselves, but Hades has an endless number of dead souls every day as a supplemental force. The depths even have 3 powerful primordial gods. Hades, although they cannot be collected, do some shallow cooperation is no problem. As for the ocean, the number of gods is not less than Olympus, but the power of 3, if you let any party complete the unification, that cohesion out of the power will be enough to shake the earth-wide sky." Zeus's face filled with gloom, to Hera said, "If Poseidon completed the unification of the ocean, his next goal is bound to be my throne, which is why I have been reluctant to help him unify the ocean. But this time, Pontos and Oceanus have united. If we do not help Poseidon, the divine court will lose the rule of the ocean." Hera sank her voice. "Originally, I was planning to wait until Poseidon was about to be defeated by both sides of Pontos, then I would strike again, then Pontos and Oceanus must have been consumed a lot too, and I would be able to easily make them stop fighting and maintain the balanced situation of the ocean. But now Apollo joined the ocean war, completely disrupting my plan." Zeus's face was full of anger, eyes dead ahead. Hera said, "The situation of the ocean is not just so simple. Whether Pontos, Poseidon or Oceanus, are involved with the Earth Mother, this battle is not so simple on the surface." "Yeah, Earth Mother," whispering the name, Zeus' eyes were full of depth. "Among the 5 primordial gods, this one had the greatest influence on the gods. The gods of today were almost all her descendants. The 3 generations of the kings of gods have also been controlled by her behind the scenes. Since the age of obscurity, it has always been her time. No one knew the true mind of this Earth Mother and Grandmother of the gods. Apollo, mixed with the marine situation, are you ready to be crushed into powder by the majestic earth?" On the icy throne, the king of gods' eyes was penetratingly cold. "Little Apollo, you finally came to the ocean again to say that this is the place where you and Artemis were born. In a flash, you have become the vice-ruler of the divine court and also married the beautiful Aphrodite. On the vast sea, Astrea, the goddess of meteors, had a face full of reminiscence. Looking at this ant, Apollo laughed. I still remember that you always liked to pinch my face, but now you can't do it anymore. Astrea glared at him. Like I've pinched you since you were a teenager, you kids just grow up so fast, and you're not as cute when you grow up. Nav om alas, you are now also a big figure in the divine court, this time, the ocean is for the upcoming war, right? Astrea asked. Apollo nodded, while his eyes flashed cold. Even if not for this war, I still have to find Oceanus to end it when he has bullied us several times. Well, we must not let this old man go. Astrea nodded her head. He suddenly reminded. I went to the father and mother gods a few days ago, and I heard from them that Oceanus had drawn a lot of titans for this war, among them Hyperion, the god of sky and the goddess of sky. Thea, goddess of light. Both of them are one of the 12 titans, senior main gods, and are also the parents of Helios and Selene. You should be careful of them. Have they been invited out as well? It seems that the Titans gods are preparing to fight once more. using the ocean as their foundation to try to restore the Titans' divine court. Apollo's eyes flashed with a flash of brilliance. After the defeat of the Titans, the second generations of the 12 Titans, Cronus, the god of weather, and Iapetus, the god of life, were imprisoned in Tartarus. Rhea, the mother of the 3 brothers of Zeus, Themis, the goddess of justice, and Mnemosyne, the goddess of memory, were married to Zeus, becoming the second and third wives of Zeus. The god of weather, the Clios couple, and their mother's parents, the Cous couple, both chose to live in seclusion. Only the Oceanus couple had been active on the ocean. The last time they abolished the divine power of the Helios siblings, the Cryos couple did not appear, and this time they were invited out, so it was clear that the intention was very big. Is not it? I heard that they also wanted to invite that uncle, Pallas of Hecate, to come out and command this battle, but he refused, Astrea said. Pallas, the god of war strategy. Apollo's eyes flashed. This former wise general in the divine court of Titans, alongside Athena's mother and Prometheus, had often heard of his name. The goddess of wisdom, Metestyle, could be seen in Athena's 8 or 9 points. Prometheus, there was more with a kind of inexplicable eerie, this Pallas, and what was the character? It's a pity that I don't have the chance to see him this time. Apollo sighed softly. Aunt Astrea, I am passing by to see you this time, and now I have to rush to the sea emperor god Pallas. He apologized. Astrea bristled. Hurry up and go to the underworld to keep Hecate company when you have time. Apollo felt her gaze seem to become unkind and hurriedly turned into a light and flew to the depths of the sea. Looking at his departing figure, Astrea's face gradually covered with grim. It's all so big, Sea Emperor's palace. A meeting was underway. Poseidon sat high on the throne above, clad in sea-blue robes, with a trident supporting the ground and a bearded face full of majesty. A pair of sea-like eyes, now sweeping the gods of the ocean below filled with inexplicable anger, seemed to be a shocking wave in the lap. The temple was dead silent. Ocean gods were lowering their heads, staring at the water-rippling ground. No one dared to look directly at the Emperor of Ocean above. Why are you all silent? In the past, when there was nothing to talk about, you were not one better than the other at the banquet, but now that you are losing ahead, you have become mute one by one. Poseidon roared, his voice was like thunder. Finally, one of the gods could not help but say. Sea Emperor, it's not that we are useless, but Oceanus has invited many Titans to help him, and his battle power has increased greatly. Before he could finish his sentence, his chest suddenly sank, and a huge fist hit him, directly knocking him out of the hall. The gods were horrified, and their eyes simultaneously gazed at the figure who had thrown the punch. He was a stout, tall, and a strong young man with a slightly boyish face, not yet an adult. But the size of the body had been very amazing, as tall as 3 or 4 gods, with a strong earth breath. The punch sent the spirit flying. The tall and strong young man clapped his hands and said to Poseidon, Father, why are you talking so much to these useless people? The defeated generals should behead themselves to warn the others. Of course, it may not be their waste war always includes many aspects. The front of the general is brave and daring, but the rear of someone's heart-old father, leaking important information out, is also understandable. With icy eyes, he suddenly locked on to the beautiful figure beside Poseidon's throne. Amphitrite's face suddenly turned cold. Ontes, what do you mean? What do you mean? I was just wondering why I didn't lose when I led my men against the more powerful army of Pontos. But on the other hand, when I dealt with the weak Oceanus system, I was killed and returned with a big defeat. I think this is not the strength gap can explain, but our secrets were leaked, and the biggest suspect, naturally, is you, Ant. After all, you are also the daughter of Oceanus. Antaeus' huge eyes stared at Amphitrite coldly. At this time, Poseidon above spoke. Enough, I believe that, my sea queen, no problem, but to avoid suspicion, the sea queen, you stay in the temple during this period, teach more teaching Triton, do not come out to ask questions. Amphitrite's face turned white. The gods of the ocean below also changed their faces. This was a good thing to say. Was it not a disguised house arrest? And still under house arrest with Prince Triton. Although this time, everyone could see that the Queen of Sea had lost power. But with such direct exposure in front of everyone, it seemed that the Sea Emperor finally made up his mind. For a time, the sea gods, who originally had a ray of hope for Amphitrite's mother and son, also lowered their gaze. Sensing the reaction of the gods in the hall, the giant like Antaeus, with large eyes covered with a smug smile. At this moment, outside suddenly came a burst of bright light. Sensing that aura, Poseidon's pupils shrank. He was next to the white face of Amphitrite, bright eyes flooded with brilliant colors. It was like seeing dawn in the middle of the night. Chapter 85. Gods, please listen to me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 85. Gods, please listen to me. The ocean gods looked at the palace entrance at the same time. Only to see that outside the tall palace door, somehow spread with gold like brilliant divine light, sacred and warm, slowly irradiated into the large temple. In the dazzling golden light, quietly came a golden-haired, handsome, and elegant white-robed young man. He had a long and well-proportioned body, like the most exquisite sculpture of handsome cheeks, eyes, nose, mouth, and ears, each as the god of craftsman Hephaestus precisely carved works of art. Especially the pair of golden eyes, but also contained as if to penetrate the hearts of the entire keen, but also with indescribable wisdom and free. Just a gently hooked-up smile, let the temple in the many beautiful goddesses in the heart of the field of sweetness. It was like tasting the sweetest milk in the world. Your Majesty, Apollo, the vice-ruler of the divine court, has come to the ocean to assist you against the rebellion by order of the king of gods. As soon as he walked into the hall, Apollo said calmly to Poseidon. At this point, the gods of the ocean in the hall then realized the identity of the visitor. So it is the god of light Apollo, the vice-ruler of the divine court, the most dazzling star of Olympus. No wonder he is so handsome and extraordinary. I heard that he was also born in the ocean, only later returned to Olympus, not long after becoming one of the most illustrious 12 main gods. He also has a sister, the cold and lonely goddess of the hunt Artemis, who is also a very good goddess. Typhon rebellion, Olympus fell, his majesty was defeated, and he was the god of light to save the day, defeated Typhon, which rebuilt Olympus. Wow, the god of light is really powerful, the most dazzling star of Olympus. If I can marry him, my life will be worth him. Cut, they already have a wife. Aphrodite is the most beautiful among the goddess, the embodiment of love and beauty. Can you compare with others? Then it's not bad to be a lover. I want to have a child for him. Numerous gods secretly discuss non-stop, especially the many goddesses who were rare and reserved and had side-eye. This made the tall giant, Antaeus, in the center of the temple, with jealousy in his eyes. Originally he was the center of all eyes converging here. You, a small man from outside, also dared to steal my thunder. He was about to get angry. But see the most majestic and imposing father god Poseidon above, actually holding a trident, stood up, face showing the honor of the expression. Apollo, you can come to the ocean to help me. It is very good. Poseidon, full of smiles from the throne down, came to Apollo, patted his shoulder, and said. We met a good deal. We've met several times, but we didn't talk much. I remember the first time when I was at Triton's banquet, I didn't even notice that you were my nephew. The Sea Emperor is in charge of one of the divine systems and has many affairs, so, understandably, he could not recognize me at that time. Apollo held a smile as he gazed around the hall and beyond. Poseidon pointed to the tallest son in the crowd and said, he is Antaeus, you remember, I introduced him to the gods at the banquet of Triton. Apollo nodded. Of course, I remember that time when Ares wanted to make things difficult for me, he was you who knocked him out, emperor of the sea. Ares, that reckless man, do not mention him. Poseidon laughed lightly and introduced the gods in the hall to Apollo. Only then slowly walked back to the throne. See the father god so warm hospitality. Antaeus, too, did not dare to flare up but stood quietly in the temple. At this time, Apollo gazed at Amphitrite next to Poseidon, smiled, and said, "Goddess Amphitrite, it's been a long time. I remember when you invited me to Prince Triton's banquet as a guest, and afterward, even had a good conversation with me, and we had a very good chat." Amphitrite said with a smile on her face, "Yes, you were very young at that time, Apollo, but now you have become a great figure in the divine court. I wonder, how come I don't see my cousin Triton?" Apollo asked. Amphitrite glanced at Poseidon with a light smile and replied, "He is being taught by some sages in the palace. Young people still need to learn more." As Apollo chatted with Amphitrite, the gods of the sea in the hall realized that the newly arrived vice-ruler of the divine court had a different kind of friendship with the queen of sea. Some of the gods who had given up supporting Amphitrite and Triton suddenly had a different look in their eyes. Antaeus also noticed it and hurriedly said, "Aunt Amphitrite, have you forgotten that Father God wants you to teach brother Triton well? Why don't you go quickly? Don't be here to attract people to question." As soon as he finished speaking, he saw Apollo looking at him. "I have just arrived here. May I ask what has happened?" "What happened is none of your business as an outsider. This is an internal matter of the ocean," Antaeus shouted. "Unbridled, I am the vice-ruler of the divine court. The ocean is also part of the divine court. How am I not qualified to ask questions?" Apollo stared at him indifferently. See Apollo angry, above the eyes of Poseidon flashed a different color. Deep look at the next Amphitrite. Immediately spoke out to reconcile. "Antaeus, Apollo is the vice-ruler of the divine court, is also your cousin, do not be rude to him." "Cousin, is he worthy?" "I am the child of my father, but my mother is the mother of the earth, and his father, Zeus, is below me in terms of seniority." In this statement, even Poseidon's face went black. Zeus was his brother, and Antaeus thought he was above Zeus. This was to put him in what place? So he is the son of the Earth Mother, really high generation. Apollo was laughing. Antaeus said proudly, "Good to know. I am the noblest bloodline of the gods." When he was proud of himself, Apollo suddenly said, "I have just learned a little bit about the situation, Prince Antaeus. You think that the goddess Amphitrite is the daughter of Oceanus and may help her father. But when you think about her, on the argument of Oceanus and Pontos, are your brother Prince Antaeus, how I feel you also need to avoid suspicion." Antaeus's eyes were wide, stunned, and he gazed at the golden figure in front of him. For a moment, he couldn't think of words to defend himself. Only to look at Apollo angrily and suddenly blast out a fist. Boom! Antaeus' powerful fist, like a falling meteorite, rumbled down on top of Apollo's head. But just as his fist reached Apollo's side, a brilliant flood of light instantly enveloped his body. A majestic force then lifted his tall body out of the air. Boom! Antaeus fell heavily on the wall of the hall, smashing a huge hole in the majestic wall. All the gods looked at this scene in shock. On the upper throne, Poseidon jerked to his feet on the upper throne, his eyes silently gazing at Apollo. Antaeus's strength was not weak as his bloodline with the Earth Mother. Although not yet adult, he already had the peak of the main gods. In particular, he was tall and powerful enough to fight against the main gods in close combat. He just threw a punch, and he was not able to react. Apollo seemed to foresee everything in advance and made a move before that, and a divine force knocked Antaeus away. What an unfathomable god! Poseidon commented in his heart. Damn, I'm going to punch you into patties. Antaeus roared and got up from the wall, waving his fist and about to hit Apollo again. At this time, Poseidon's eyes flooded with bitterness, and the trident in his hand pointed down to the ground. A huge wave of majestic power immediately knocked back Antaeus. Poseidon coldly said. Apollo is right, in terms of blood relations, the gods are all connected. If you want to doubt, no one is worthy of trust. After this, he gazed at his wife above. My sea queen, you do not avoid suspicion. Stay here for me to give Apollo a good reception. At that moment, some gods rushed in and reported. No, the ocean gods have attacked our inner sea. Poseidon frowned and asked, who is leading the attack? The god responded with a trembling voice. The ocean lord himself, and even his wife and the two titans. What, they are all here? Poseidon's face was astonished. The alliance between Oceanus and Pontos was not solid, and they were wary of each other. So often, during the Great War, they would reserve part of their power to prevent the allies from backstabbing. But this time, the Oceanus system was out in full force. Just when he was shocked, there was another report from outside. See Emperor, it's not good. Pontos led many gods to kill from the deep sea. When these words came out, the whole temple suddenly fell silent. How could this happen? Not only is the Oceanus attacking, but Pontos has also launched an attack there. What should we do now? The most we can do is resist the full force of one of them because they were on guard against each other, and neither of them did their best. Now both sides are full of force, and we can't resist it alone. They have agreed to destroy us in one battle. Sea Emperor, please make a decision quickly. Many sea gods looked at Poseidon in panic. Poseidon also looked a little uncertain. It wasn't that he didn't expect that both sides of Pontos would launch a general attack with full force, but he didn't expect it to come so quickly. His preparations here are not yet complete. Just as he paled, the golden figure on the side spoke up. Chapter 86. Earth Mother's Promise, Titans Restored. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 86. Earth Mother's Promise, Titans Restored. Sea Emperor, since Pontos and oceanic gods have come in, let me and you meet the enemy separately. Apollo's silent voice instantly attracted the attention of all gods. For a while, these gods all talked excitedly. Vice-ruler Apollo is a powerful god capable of defeating Typhon. With his help, we will be able to confront Pontos and Oceanus. Pontos and Oceanus could never have imagined that we would have support from Olympus. Yes, thanks to the presence of Lord Apollo. Hearing the excited voices of the gods, Antaeus couldn't help but growl. Isn't it just defeating a Typhon? I think it must be because Typhon was badly injured by the king of God before that, plus the many gods of Olympus assisted together, which allowed you to pick up the slack. His loud voice, like thunder, instantly made the whole hall quiet. Feeling the people's attention, Antaeus proudly said. Oceanus standing in the sea, the strength is not so simple. I think I should ask the Earth Mother to step in and stop this war first. The gods looked at each other with hesitation in their eyes. Antaeus said, although Apollo's reputation is great, in the end, they have not seen his strength. In case he is really strong, defeating Typhon was just an accident, and then this time is not the end. But when Antaeus proposed to ask Earth Mother to come forward, did he take everyone for a fool? Who did not know that Pontus and Oceanus were the sons of Earth Mother? If Earth Mother was willing to help their side against them, what good purpose could it be? I'm afraid that after the battle, the entire ocean would be in the hands of Earth's mother Gaia, and His Majesty Poseidon would become a useless puppet. At this time, Apollo suddenly surged a bright light right into the huge body of Antaeus. Before the battle, disturbing the army should have been beheaded to show the public. As the son of Sea Emperor, I will have you imprisoned in the name of the vice-ruler of the divine court. Boom! A brilliant flood of light fused into a long golden whip in mid-air. Carrying a blazing light, he fiercely struck the huge body of Antaeus. The son of Earth Mother instantly let out a miserable scream, red whip marks, and a bloody surface of his tall body. Gods looked at this scene in disbelief. This vice-ruler was too brave, actually whipping Antaeus in front of the Sea Emperor. But I have to say, it's reassuring. Gods of the sea all swept the Antaeus, who had been whipped to the ground with the afterglow of dark joy. Since his birth, this damned foolish giant has relied on the son of Sea Emperor and the mother of Earth to dominate the ocean. Just like with the previous god, he was beaten to death with his fists at the drop of a hat. Now finally met a more ruthless existence. Although secretly happy, gods were more worried, secretly staring at Poseidon above. Now that the war was imminent, the Sea Emperor could not fight because of this, and the god of light fought. But Poseidon held the trident, regardless of Antaeus' earlier yelling and screaming or later whipping. He stared down with silent eyes. After a while, he said in a low voice, "Apollo is the vice-ruler of the divine court, equal to my position. Questioning him is questioning me, and he deserves to be punished. Someone, take Antaeus down." He looked deeply at his wife, Amphitrite, and said, "You know Apollo very well, so take half of the gods with you and accompany Apollo to fight against Oceanus." With these words, he looked at the other half of the gods, raised his trident high, and said, "Gods, follow me to meet Pontus." When Apollo led the gods away, his golden eyes flashed, and he looked at Amphitrite, saying, "They say the Sea Emperor and I are the same." She said that the Sea Emperor is very similar to my father god, but now it seems that the Sea Emperor is much more calm and sensible than my father god, who is impulsive and direct in his actions. Maybe not calm, but simply do not care. He doesn't care about me, nor does he care about Antaeus, because we are all just tools he uses to gain support and consolidate his power. If the tool is useful, then naturally, it should be admired, but if the tool loses its value, then what is the difference between it and a piece of trash? Amphitrite's beautiful cheeks were expressionless as if she had dried her tears and lost her sorrow. Looking at the wide ocean ahead, Apollo said in a low voice, "It seems he has seen your alliance with me, so he wants you to follow me to deal with Oceanus. Yes, if you lose, I will lose my last hope, and if you win, I will watch my father fall by your hands. Ha, this is punishment for me." Looking out over the distant sea, Amphitrite was sneering but still expressionless. After a while, she quietly looked at the golden figure beside her and said indifferently, "Don't worry about my thoughts, use your full strength and kill my stupid father. Only when he is dead and clean can I gather the other gods of the oceanic god system and occupy a favorable position in the unified ocean. For this goal, Oceanus must die." Shortly after her words fell, the vast sea in front of her suddenly rolled out monstrous waves. Layers and layers of waves, spreading like a lifted curtain, spread from the sea to the sky. And amid these endless waves, a thick and winding majestic ocean current, vast and surging, with endless waves of water, came rushing in from the edge of the world. This is a true oceanic river. Oceanus is out of his mind. Gods behind Apollo shrieked in horror. In the world of Greek mythology, the earth was the center of the world, and outside, the earth was wrapped by the boundless ocean. The ocean had a far inshore and a deep sea that was limitless and endless. And at the very edge of the ocean and the entire world, there was a belt winding through the sky and the earth between the vast ocean current. This was the great oceanic river. It was the edge of the world, the place where the sky and the earth met at an articulated intersection. For millions of years, the great ocean rivers have been like wheels, constantly circulating the sea. When Oceanus was out against people, the surging oceans and rivers were just its projections. At this moment, this whole universe, the fastest and most majestic oceans, were all drawn, rushing to the sea. I saw thousands of gods standing faintly in the surging waves, each wearing armor and holding weapons, exuding an awe-inspiring aura. In the middle of them, Oceanus, the god of ocean and rivers, held a dazzling spear and gazed at the boundless ocean with eyes that were as turbulent as the ocean and rivers. "Bow down to me, sons of Poseidon, god of seas and rivers, who today will unite the seas and restore the house of God to Titan." The waves tumbled, and he made a loud sound that shook the world. Zeus, who was sitting in Olympus, looked steeply gloomy. Damned. Titans gods, still want to restore now, should have put all of you stupid old guys in Tartarus. He was amid his anger. In the surging water of the ocean and rivers, three huge momentums suddenly emerge, exuding an ancient and powerful aura, shaking the universe. This is, Thetis, goddess of the sea, Hyperion, god of heights, and Thea, goddess of light. In an instant, not only the ocean but even the gods of the sky, earth, and underworld were alarmed. Across the distance, numerous gods gazed in shock at the four figures standing tall on the sea. In a trance, they felt like they were back in the old days when the Titans ruled the divine court. At that time, the second generation of King of God Cronus ruled the universe. The 12 Titans joined forces to suppress the world, and even several main gods had to retreat from the front because they did not dare to compete. That was the era of glory belonging to the Titans gods. Along with the destruction of the Titans, the old glory had long since faded into the river of time. But now, 4 Titan gods have appeared at the same time, threatening to restore the Titans' divine court. This was to change the sky. All over the world, many of the Titans' gods were a little bit stupid to move. As if feeling the shocked gaze of the gods, Oceanus stood on top of the ocean, overlooking the vast ocean in high spirits. Spear raised. Poseidon, quickly bring your wife and children to surrender to me. Not only you, even Zeus, sitting high in Olympus, will eventually bow down to me. The world belongs to us, Titans, and the incompetent Cronus has lost this great world to you. But I, Oceanus, on behalf of the gods of the Titans, will complete the Renaissance and become the new king of gods. As he was roaring in triumph, a cold laugh came from the distance. Father God, I didn't know you had such ambition before. It's not like you. Oceanus gazed over and saw his daughter Amphitrite coming out of the endless waves of water. He laughed and said, Is Poseidon afraid of this? Let you come over to make peace. Tell him that I have been supported by the mother goddess and have become the ruler of the gods of Titans, the uncrowned king. If you want to surrender, let him come over in person. I said, when did you have such courage, Oceanus? You are cared for by the mother, but the Earth Mother should also have said this to Pontos. Poseidon may also have heard it. Suddenly, the golden figure of Apollo appeared on the surface of the sea with a teasing mouth. It's you. The other gods of the court of Olympus can surrender, but you, Apollo, I want you to pay for my son's life. At first sight of Apollo, Oceanus was furious and raised his spear in anger, carrying the unparalleled power of the great ocean river, and thrust it at Apollo. Standing on top of the ocean rivers, this god of ocean burst out with strength that surpassed the limits of the past, reaching the peak of the 9th rank of the main gods. The endless torrents of the sky were like falling stars, furiously and rapidly surging. Chapter 87. Apollo surrounded by 4 Titans gods. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 87. Apollo surrounded by 4 Titans gods. The sky was filled with raging waves, like a hideous beast, and the sky rolled out of the envelope. Within the layers of the water, a stern spear light pierced the sky. Oceanus's eyes were cold, and the spear was condensed with unparalleled power, piercing the space like an epic that had been turned over in the years. The bitter killing machine poured out like a flood around Apollo. At this moment, a splendid field of light suddenly opened. Blazing light flame, burning the ocean and the sky, the huge heat distorted the space. Allowing the sky to spread the waves of water, all in the blink of an eye, evaporated clean. Boom! Oceanus stabbed with his unparalleled spear. Apollo's golden eyes gently rose. The mouth lightly smiled. Repairing this spear took a lot of time, right? Hearing this voice, Oceanus's murderous intent face suddenly flushed red. The light of the spear became more and more majestic. But see, Apollo's feet on the sea, surrounded by the field of infinite light, suddenly erupted magnificent power. At the same time, the power of the stars shone, and the power of the etheric divine body in the flood of light converged, striking a stunning fist seal. Bang! Only a loud rumble, like an earthquake, was heard, and the space around it exploded into flying dust. A single thin fist ruthlessly blasted in front of the harsh spear of Oceanus. Fist shadow with light, spear light attached to the giant wave. The ocean and the sky shook at the same time when the two collided fiercely. Under the shocked eyes of all the gods around the world, the single thin fist covered by light struck the harsh spear. The crisp sound of clicking echoed through the universe. The divine spear, which was filled with the power of the vast ocean, was broken and smashed like a bamboo pole. The blazing power of light struck the chest of Oceanus. The oceanic god, who had been so vigorous that he threatened to make Poseidon bow down, restore the court of Titans, and become the king of gods, staggered and coughed out blood as he flew backward in the torrent. It seems that your spear repair does not work. I recommend you go to Olympus to find Hephaestus. He is still good at his craft. Gazing at the body of Oceanus falling into the seawater, Apollo said indifferently. At the same time, 3 strong forces enveloped him, blocking his way forward and buying time for Oceanus. The goddess of sea, Tessis, the god of high heavens, Hyperion, and the goddess of light, Thea, plus Oceanus, has 4 Titan gods, all of which are above the 6th rank of the main god. Your strength is worth letting me give you a defeat. Standing with his hands behind his back, Apollo looked at the 3 figures walking out of the waves, and his eyes finally fell on one of the beautiful women with bright hair. Thea, the goddess of light, isn't she? I hate the title of goddess of light. This will make others mistakenly think that you, an old woman, have nothing to do with me. Then, the goddess of light with bright hair and starry eyes could not help but fill her cheeks with anger and stare at the blonde boy with resentment and hatred. Apollo, when you ruined my son Helios and daughter Selene, today I will make you pay the price. On the other side, the god of high heavens Hyperion also locked Apollo with a cold face, the majestic divine power of the 7th rank of the main god brewing out. The goddess of the sea, Tessis, had already helped her husband, Oceanus. This kid is very powerful, especially a divine body, strong power, let's join hands to kill him. Oceanus shouted. All of a sudden, 4 immensely powerful Titans gods, filled with a terrifying aura, step by step approaching Apollo. The gods watching the battle then reacted. This is Apollo, the god of light, the vice-ruler of the divine court, he is here to help Poseidon. What a great power, one punch shattered the spear of Oceanus, worthy of the powerful existence that led the gods of Olympus to defeat Typhon. You're not well informed, last time Oceanus had his spear broken, repaired, and then shattered. This time I'm afraid it can never be repaired. Hey, the god of light only gave him the recommendation of Hephaestus. With Vulcan's craft, there may be hope. He is such goods, also dare to say that the gods of Titans, restoration of the divine court. One face was defeated, and now we can only rely on the number of people to deal with the god of light, the gods of Titans, no one to let this old guy out. But they are 4 powerful Titans, each is a very powerful divine lord, the god of light is now in danger. Where did the Sea Emperor go? Wait, the sound of fighting is also coming from the other side of the sea, it seems that the Sea Emperor is fighting with Pontos. Could it be that the god of light has to fight the 4 Titans alone, and Olympus can no longer send other reinforcements? While the gods were talking, the face of Zeus, sitting high in Olympus, finally eased up. Sensing the battle on the sea, he laughed. Battle, you 2 sides who appear dead or wounded, are just what I want. For Titans, I wonder how much Apollo you have to spend to take. While he was laughing, the 4 Titans gradually surrounded Apollo in the vast sea. Apollo, suffer death. Hyperion, the god of high heavens, took the lead, with monstrous hatred in his eyes, guiding the changes in the stars in the sky, and the vast power formed an invisible giant hand, which grabbed Apollo where he stood. Behind him was Thea, the goddess of light. This goddess of the Titans also had the clergy of light, inspiring bright rays of light, shining in all directions, forming a splendid field, and expanding. The Oceanus and the Tessis, two spirits of the sea, joined hands to create a tidal current that rose like a raging tide. The four powerful divine forces converged, and with their splendid power, the void collapsed, the laws shook, and the sea and sky reversed. At this moment, Apollo's golden eyes suddenly raised. Restored divine light burst instantly, and a deep twilight power emerged, the vast world suddenly covered by a dusky twilight. He blew the trumpet symbolizing the end, and the final judgment came. Boom! Hyperion, the god of high heavens who rushed in the front, was the first to bear the brunt. The unparalleled power of twilight tore apart the invisible hand, and the monstrous twilight carried the terrifying judgment of decay and death, raging against his divine body. Poof! Hyperion's face changed wildly, stumbling planted in the waves, the body breath withered. The goddess of light, Thea, just noticed that her husband's situation was not good, and before she could react, there was a blazing power of light tearing apart the power of light that belonged to her. Shatter! The void exploded, and the domain shattered. The blazing power of light surged to cover the surrounding body of Thea. Like a burning flame instantly spread throughout her entire body, the goddess of light eyes was full of panic, struggling to exert divine power to contain the spread of the golden flame on her body. Sister Thea! The goddess of the sea, Tessis, screamed, causing huge waves to try to help Thea douse the flames on her body. But at this time, the deep dusk had fallen. The infinite twilight was permeated with the great power of death and decay, but everything that was illuminated by this light would inevitably go to the end of decay and destruction. Poof! Tessis, the goddess of the sea, coughed up blood several times, and the wife of the oceanic god, who had given birth to 6,000 children, her delicate and plump body aged and withered in the blink of an eye. The dreadful twilight fell on her, to deprive her of life. The eyes of Oceanus were round, and he roared and rushed toward his wife, the power of the great ocean river behind him exploding violently to the extreme. He was the god of ocean rivers, standing on the winding ocean, divine power was the peak of the unreachable. The great ocean torrent was endless, in the vast expanse of the sky into a constant cycle of the crystal belt, wrapped around to protect him and Tessis. But this was the golden eyes that seemed to be long in the river of time, saw this scene, a blazing light, tearing apart layers of space. The powerful force broke through the oceanic river, hitting hard on the sturdy body of Oceanus. Under the shocked gaze of the gods, the god of great ocean rivers lurched and suddenly fell into the infinite waves of water, dying. How is it possible that the four Titans and Oceanus were all defeated in just one encounter? Whether it was the gods who witnessed it on the ocean or the gods who watched from a distance in the sky, earth, and underworld, they were all overwhelmed. They knew Apollo was powerful. Some also predicted that Apollo would be able to defeat the siege of four Titans gods. But it was only a matter of a few breaths before the four Titans were routed. It was simply unimaginable. How powerful was he? He was surrounded by four powerful Titans gods. Why is it now the other way around, as if the four Titans gods were surrounded by him alone and were struggling to die? A god said in horror. No one answered his words. None of the gods had yet recovered from their shock. I don't believe it. How can you be so powerful? How can you be so strong? In the heaving waves of water, Oceanus struggled to raise his head full of white hair sinked over his forehead, his pale eyes penetrating with madness and resignation. I am one of the 12 Titans, I am the Lord of Ocean of the second generation. I am the Lord of Oceanic divine system, with 6,000 sons and daughters. I will also restore the Titans' divine court and become the new king of gods. Why, I will lose so many times to you, a descendant of God. I am not willing. I am not willing. When Oceanus roared, Apollo approached him, step by step, with an indifferent expression, completely ignoring any words he said. Only the infinite power of light was shining, brewing a terrible killing opportunity. Oceanus, go! Hyperion, the god of high heavens, escaped pale from the twilight, shouting at Oceanus, roaring, and urging divine power to intercept Apollo. Descendant, you do not think that this is even a victory over our great god Titans. I will let you know. While blocking, Hyperion was shouting non-stop. But he just said half of the words. See Apollo's body group of stars flashing, and suddenly, his fist blasts out. Boom! The harsh fist print smashed his divine power and ruthlessly penetrated his chest. After. Descendant. You, Hyperion stared at the blonde god in front of him with dead eyes, gazing at him in grief and anger. What a racket! Apollo punched out again. Boom! The furious group of stars enveloped Hyperion's head, and the Lord of High Heaven's face wore a creepy expression as he stared blankly ahead. The next moment, his divine body collapsed in pieces onto the sea. L.rg. A terrifying vision emerged in the sky. The vision of the fall of the Divine Lord. Chapter 88. With one punch from the main god, Titans fall. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 88. With one punch from the main god, Titans fall. The vast sky suddenly became gloomy, shrouded in gloom. Like the sky was grieving. The gods of the earth, sky, sea, and underworld were shocked. Hyperion, the god of high heavens, had fallen. This was one of the 12 Titans, the existence of the former ruler of the universe. He died under Apollo's fist like this. Every god was trembling inside. But Apollo's pace did not stop because of this. In the golden light, he roamed on the sea and approached Oceanus step by step. Hyperion, I will kill him to avenge you. Thea, the goddess of light, came sorrowfully from behind, bathed in the most glorious light, like a moth on fire, vowing to set the whole world on fire. The blazing light and heat exploded on her body, steaming and burning the entire sea, and the divine power of the 6th rank of the Divine Lord erupted volcanically to the extreme. Like a dragon of fire raging toward Apollo. The death of her brother and husband, who had been with her for countless years, had made this goddess Titans completely lose her senses. What Titan's glory, what the restoration of the divine court, now her heart only hate. Devoured the enemy's body and the enemy's spirit with light and fire. Desperate heart, want to perish with the enemy. Apollo's golden eyes faintly swept towards her, the power of the swarm of stars rumbled and flashed, and the vast power of the etheric divine body filled into a blazing fist. The monstrous shadow of the fist shattered space, pierced through the light and heat, and landed majestically on Thea. Boom! Only a thunderous tremor was heard. As the gods watched, the advancing body of Thea stopped at the surface of the sea. The flame on her body gradually finished, and the light also gradually dimmed, only a pair of radiant eyes stunned look ahead. Hyperion, I'm here to accompany you. Murmuring her last words, the goddess Titan's divine body pierced into a radiant light that instantly illuminated the entire world. The sea and sky were dyed bright and transparent. Goddess of light, Thea, fallen. The gods watching the battle were speechless. Looking at the golden figure in the infinite light, their hearts were full of shock and awe. This was the strength of Apollo, the god of light, the vice-ruler of the divine court who could compete with the king of God. 2 fists, 2 Titans, great gods fell. You should know that even in the Titans' war, there was no such thing as the fall of 12 Titans. The era belonging to the Titans, after all, will be completely past. Mount Olympus, one hand holding the scales, one hand holding the sword of the goddess of justice Themis, with white cloth-covered eyes, unknowingly drops a teardrop. She was also one of the 12 Titans and was also the eldest sister. She witnessed the rise of the Titans' divine court and also witnessed the replacement of the Titans' gods. But even Cronus, who was defeated in the Titan War, was only imprisoned in Tartarus. 12 Titans had always been alive. This was why Titan gods attempted to restore reason. The Titan's court's pillars were never gone, and there was still hope for everything. But now the Hyperion was dead. Two of the once main gods of the Titan's divine court had now weirdly fallen into the ocean. There will be no more 12 Titans and no more Titan's divine court. The goddess of justice said this, and she had seen through the future. It was a time that did not belong to the Titans. At the same time as she sighed, in a tall shrine, the goddess Rhea also shed tears. Looking at her daughter Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, she said in a sorrowful voice. After all, we have come to this step. When the Titans war, I made many efforts to protect, maintain the brothers and sisters, so they did not fall, at most, into Tartarus. I didn't expect that in the end, I would not be able to escape such an ending. Hyperion and Thea died at the hands of my grandson. I think Oceanus and Tessis will not be alive today. 12 Titans, there are only 8 Titans left in a day. Rhea gazed sadly out of the sky. Hestia, the goddess of the hearth, whispered. When they decided to invade Poseidon, to challenge the rule of Olympus, to restore the Titans, they should have understood that this would be the result. Yes, this is the inevitable price to pay for the power struggle. A family born into the bloodline of the King of God always has to have a such fate. Divine Mother Rhea murmured. At the same time, on Mount Wilson, Kus, the god of heaven, and Phopers, the goddess of light, both let out a long sigh. They were touched by the fall of their brother and sister. At the same time, they said to their daughter Leto, "You have a son of great power. The glory belonging to the Titans has not been destroyed by Zeus but will be drowned in his light. This is the fate, isn't it, that the new gods bury the old ones?" When several other Titan gods lamented, the same Titan gods, Oceanus and Tessis, were equally sad and mournful at the moment. But more than that, they were afraid. The golden figure that had single-handedly killed the two siblings was approaching at a slow pace, step by step. Powerful bright fluctuations lingered around him. But it was the aura of death. "Quick, stop him!" Oceanus and Tessis yelled, ordering the thousands of sons and daughters in the great ocean behind them to stop Apollo. Although these gods hesitated, they did not dare to disobey the orders of their father and mother gods and rush towards Apollo, who was approaching step by step with their divine weapons. Oceanus and Tessis took this opportunity to retreat. Looking at their back, Apollo sighed lightly. What kind of parents would let their children die while they run for their lives? Before the words left his mouth, his body suddenly surged with a vast force. Tidal wave attacked the thousands of gods who came in front of him. Under the radiant light, these oceanic gods, who were at most at the peak of the upper gods, and even most of them were middle gods, and lower gods, were dusted off one by one like flakes. So the sky was filled with flakes, and thousands of gods struggled from the air and landed in the sea. Every god's heart was shaken as such a picture fell deeply into their hearts. They were thousands of gods, not thousands of ants. But in front of this god of light, they seemed to be even weaker than an ant. Perhaps this was the great man who stood at the top of gods. With a single move, you could destroy a god system. Apollo chased after Oceanus and gave Amphitrite a look before he left. The Queen of Sea also just came out of shock. She stared at the distant golden figure with an incomparably complicated look. She remembered how she looked when she first saw him. At that time, he was very weak in front of his father, Oceanus, a contradiction that he reconciled for them. But now, he was clear that less than 100 years had passed, and he had reached such a point. "Father, this is your fate, right?" Amphitrite sighed in her heart. She walked up to the gods of the oceanic divine system, who had been knocked out by Apollo, and began to recruit and surrender. On the other side, Oceanus and Tessis were frantically fleeing into the waves. The golden figure behind them was unhurried and approached them to step by step. "Go to Pontos, join hands with him so that we can have a chance to live." Oceanus gritted his teeth and said to his wife. Tessis, the goddess of the sea, nodded her head and ran desperately with the injured Oceanus. Just a short distance ahead of them, the same endless waves were surging. Two magnificent figures battled furiously together. One wore a crown and held a trident, every movement was filled with majesty, pulling the ocean's infinite waves, carrying the power of the seven seas to suppress the universe. The other long dark blue hair fluttered in the wind, the demonic young face through the indescribable treacherous profound, the figure seemed to be one with the infinite void, breathing and lifting hands was world-shaking. He was the Sea Emperor Poseidon and the primordial god Pontos. But in terms of personal strength, the two supreme powerhouses stood at the top of the ocean. Especially the primordial god Pontos was the brother of the first king of god Uranus, an ancient existence born as early as the ignorant era. He participated in the war between Gaia, the Earth Mother, and the other primordial gods and also worked with Uranus to establish the primordial divine court. After countless years of accumulation, his strength was a mystery. Early gods rumored that he had stepped into the realm of the primordial. At this moment, even if Poseidon used the most powerful sea emperor authority to suppress, but also still only with his battle was indistinguishable. Even vaguely, Poseidon was slightly down in the wind. The two were fighting fiercely, and when they sensed the speedy escape of the Oceanus couple in the distance, their expressions changed at the same time. After the investigation, Poseidon was shocked and said, "Apollo killed Hyperion and Thea. How long has it been since the war started?" On the other hand, Pontos didn't say a word and walked over to the two. "Don't even think about leaving. Last time, you prevented me from going to Olympus. This time I also want you to watch the Oceanus couple die in battle." Poseidon shouted, and the trident vibrated, intercepting Pontus. However, intentionally or unintentionally, he deliberately left a little door open. The distance between Pontos and Oceanus was getting closer and closer. "Apollo, you can kill two titans as quickly as this. This time, let you face the attack of Oceanus and Pontos at the same time." Poseidon laughed coldly in his heart. For his wife and Apollo's union, he was looking at him. Originally, although he knew that Apollo's strength was strong, he also had the confidence to confront him. But at this moment, the rapid collapse of the four titans cast a shadow over his heart. Therefore, he wanted to take advantage of the situation, borrowing the hands of Pontus and others to hit Apollo. "Then Zeus will make a move, and then I will be able to watch you fight him to the death and injury," Poseidon thought eagerly in his heart. Chapter 89. Poseidon and Oceanus Ruthlessness. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 89. Poseidon and Oceanus Ruthlessness. Come on, right ahead. Oceanus became thought that he would have such a wretched time. With his wife like a hunter's arrow fleeing rabbit, rushing wildly in the sea just to find a chance to live. But the blazing brightness that was approaching behind him made him struggle to move forward. Finally, he saw Pontos, who was fighting with Poseidon. Once, he was disgusted with this primordial sea god and hated his young demonic face, obviously much older than his existence. But at the moment, far from seeing the figure of Pontos, his face could not help but be filled with excitement. "You are excited. Are you aware that I have arrived behind you?" Suddenly a calm voice came from behind him. Both Oceanus and Theseus could not help but stiffen their feet. Especially Oceanus. He was too familiar with this voice. Ever since he saw the blonde boy on Riviera Island decades ago, I didn't know when, this voice and the golden figure had been hovering in his mind like a nightmare. He was just a descendant of God, born less than 100 years ago. Why could he repeatedly let his own Hull Ocean Master make a mess? How unfair was fate that made all these young gods so good? Therefore, he wanted to kill him, not because of the hatred of his son Achilles, but because he must not allow such an excellent god to survive in the world. Otherwise, after 1,000 years, where was there still a place for old gods like yourself? He thought he had done a decisive job. But fate had played a big joke on him. This young blonde god, indeed, could threaten their excellent descendants. But the other party was excellent and completely beyond their original imagination. In just under 100 years, he was being hunted by him. O fate, why do you always give birth to so many powerful descendant gods that threaten the status of our previous generation gods? Oceanus was resentful. He had given birth to 6,000 sons and daughters, and only a few of them could be called excellent, and they all rebelled against him. Why were all the children of others so powerful and excellent? Fate was treating him badly. As he thought this, a dusk twilight enveloped his old body. Boom! The surging twilight power, with the aura of decay and death, surged over the sturdy body of Oceanus. Oceanus roared and urged his divine power, invoking the great power of the great ocean rivers to fight against it. But the power of light was too vast. Although Apollo's divine power was the same as his, both were only at the 8th rank of the divine lord. But the magic of the aurora domain itself could make the ordinary divine lord exert the power of the 9th order of the divine lord. The two superimposed Apollo's power of light had reached infinitely close to the original field of strength. Oceanus' severely wounded body, although blessed with the power of oceans and rivers, could not resist such mighty power at all. In the blink of an eye, the body layers of giant waves were torn to pieces. The good thing was that his wife Theseus came back to his senses, and although she was only the 6th rank of the main god, the divine power handle and Oceanus closely matched. With her full strength, she helped Oceanus to hold his ground. But there is still a little bit of ability, and then take this move of mine. Apollo smiled lightly, the power of etheric divine body in his body exploded, the stars shone brightly, and he punched. After many years of cultivation, his etheric divine body had long reached an extreme level, and a further step was the circulation of stars, forming a starry sky prototype comparable to the main god. At this moment, a fist blast, infinitely close to the original domain of great power. If he was close, with the weakness of the ordinary god's divine body, one punch was enough to kill a high-ranking divine lord. Although the distance between the two of them was a bit far, under the fusion of the power of the etheric divine body and the power of the god of light, the majestic power was still beyond the extreme of the divine lord. Boom! Only a loud sound was heard. The surging water formed by the joint efforts of Oceanus and his wife Theseus was pierced with trembling. Seeing the majestic power blasting over from afar, a struggle flashed in the eyes of Oceanus, and then ruthlessness surged out. Theseus, I'm sorry, I want to live. Steeple finally embraced this wife who had given birth to more than 6,000 children for him and spent half of her life in childbirth but without complaint. At her stunned and grief-stricken gaze, he pushed her into the flood of light that came. He turned and fled to the far side, where Pontos was. The splendid and majestic power of light blazed over the plump body of the goddess of the sea, Theseus. When death was near, this goddess, still stunned, staring in the direction of her husband, fled the corners of her mouth with disbelief. Then she melted away in a blaze of light. Another Titan's god fell. But at this moment, the gods were watching the battle. The heart was not sighing or lamenting but all with anger and chills. No one could imagine that the great ocean lord used his wife's life as a chance to escape a crisis. This was too disgraceful for the gods. As expected of the father of Achilles, you are more ruthless than him. Apollo sighed softly. He remembered that when he killed Achilles, the son of Oceanus, the other party also used his comrades to block the sword. No wonder you like him so much. It's true that he is a real father and son. With a mocking laugh, Apollo's figure turned into a streamer, chasing after Oceanus, who had fled to Pontos. See Emperor, stop Pontos, solve Oceanus. I will help you deal with him, Apollo called out to Poseidon. Poseidon nodded and swept his trident, detonating endless waves of water to block Pontos. Apollo, on the other hand, approached the desperate Oceanus step by step. Beowulf the gods all called out in the dark. God of light, let him go down to see the goddess Theseus. Such a god was actually introduced by the Titans as a representative. The era of the Titans has indeed passed. Apollo, on behalf of our Olympus, gets rid of this old guy, my great vice-ruler of the divine court. Even Themis, Rhea, and other Titans gods who had fallen because of their 3 siblings curbed their grief at this moment and looked forward to Apollo killing Oceanus with a disgusted gaze. Seemingly hearing the voices of the gods, the endless waves of water, Oceanus laughed and said, "What do you people know? I am the only hope for the revival of Titans, and only if I survive can I lead the Titans gods and rebuild the divine court that belongs to us. Zeus also had his wife, my daughter, brutally killed, but he is the king of gods, so no one dares to mention it. I have long seen everything. When I become the new king of gods, all people will only praise my firmness today, and my greatness will be written in the epic poem for the world to celebrate." The moment Oceanus was still chattering, a blazing light suddenly enveloped his body. Apollo's golden eyes were bright and silent as he forced his way through. Oceanus trembled and slowly backed up toward Pontus. Seeing that the situation of Oceanus here was critical, Pontus also increased the impact on Poseidon. Suddenly, Poseidon's eyes flashed with cold light, and the trident in his hand deviated a little. Pontus thoughtfully rushed through his block, carrying the majestic water waves, rushing to kill Apollo. This sudden change shocked the gods watching the battle. Only Zeus on Olympus had a thoughtful look in his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Poseidon, do you also feel his threat?" The waves of sea, the demonic-looking primordial sea god Pontos, the body rolled infinite power, a blast from the side to hit Apollo. "Young god, Oceanus can't die yet." When the gods were horrified, Apollo seemed to have expected it, and a light divine power blocked Pontos' attack. At the same time, golden eyes indifferently swept toward Poseidon. The Sea Emperor said in an awkward tone. A moment of carelessness, but he was rushed past. Said and raised the trident, "Come on, you and I will join forces to kill the 2 of them here. Together." Apollo suddenly snorted a laugh. Then with golden eyes, coldly sweeping the front of Pontos and Oceanus, he faintly said, "Kill the 2 of them. I alone am enough." Suddenly, Apollo's posture was magnificent, and the vast power of the god of light and the infinite power of the etheric divine body burst out, sweeping over Pontus and the 2 of them like a tidal wave of fury. The terrible power shook the ocean and sky. Chapter 90. Half of the primordial god. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 90. Half of the primordial god. One person was enough. Calm words in the vast sea stirred up a monstrous momentum. Poseidon's expression was stunned, and holding the trident trembled slightly. On the opposite side, looking at Pontos blocking the front, Oceanus suddenly had the courage to sneer. "Young gods are arrogant, standing above the sea, I and Pontos together, even the mother goddesses do not dare to say that they can take, you think you are the main god." Before his words fell, there was a bright light power penetrating the water curtain and bursting over. The young and demonic-looking primordial sea god Pontos, his eyes flashed with a strange color, and a majestic wave of water intercepted him over. Boom! The force of the water wave blocked in front of the power of light, dissipating half of the power of light in the blink of an eye. However, the remaining light power still penetrated the water wave and hit the corner of the mouth of Oceanus. The face of Oceanus, who was laughing with glee, changed abruptly and hurriedly used his divine power to resist. The power of light was like a whip, fiercely smacking Oceanus in the mouth. Snap! The harsh force left a bloody mark on Oceanus' pale face. "Well done, it's time to smack this old man." The gods watching the battle shouted in approval. But there were still some worries. Although the god of light is powerful, Oceanus is not weak, Pontos is mysterious and unpredictable, no one can guess the bottom line of his strength, and the ocean is their home turf, the god of light alone can fight them both together. Yes, the god of light is still a bit overconfident. If you add the Emperor of Sea, this battle will be a sure win. As the gods whispered, the figure of Apollo in the infinite light suddenly flickered. A dusk twilight enveloped Pontus. Good divine art. With a light sigh, the primordial sea god demon face essence light condensed flash, arms abruptly open, behind the tumbling out of the sky waves, like an upside-down stormy sea map, and the dusk twilight impact. Not far from him, Oceanus woke up from the whip on his face, covered his puffy cheeks, and stared at the golden figure in the light with resentment. Seeing the monstrous waves of the sea triggered by Pontos fighting together with the twilight, he had the courage. He shouted and drew the great power of the ocean river, turning it into a heavenly wave that crossed the void and crashed into the light. Surge huge waves rolled, and Apollo's small figure, like a small boat in a boundless storm, felt the shocking waves' impact. But this flat boat, a leaf, was like the weight of the mountains and rivers. The light of the power of brilliant spread still made the waves immovable. Ponto's demonic face became grave. But see, the distant light power became more and more dense as if Apollo's lightning-like figure was approaching. Bang bang. The power of etheric divine body spread violently, and the light of the stars shone in the sky. Layers of waves and curtains of water were pierced and torn. Apollo's golden eyes were bright, and the magnificent figure was filled with the divine breath, as if the origin of all things, the Lord of the creation of the gods, the vast divine, might suppress the sea and sky. Snort. The sky was covered with light, and endless splendor spread. The majestic power was like the collapse of the vast sky, rumbling over Pontos. This primordial sea god looked startled, and a monstrous power erupted from his body. On the other side, Oceanus saw that Pontus was in danger, his eyes full of resentment with hesitation. After struggling for a while, he mobilized the power of the ocean and rivers to attack Apollo. To relieve Pontos. But at that moment, Apollo's golden eyes abruptly turned and gazed at him coldly. "You've finally come over, accept the judgment of twilight." Boom. The deep twilight of dusk exploded in mid-air. The aura of decay and death enveloped Oceanus. "No, you can't kill me." God of the ocean looked terrified and roared as he was interested to urge the power of ocean rivers, and a continuous stream of vast water poured out. But in the dim twilight of dusk, these surging ocean currents quickly decayed and dulled as if a mass of lifeless water. Boom. The power of etheric divine body exploded, a harsh fist seal blasting down on the chest of Oceanus. The pale body of the god of ocean river lurched. Suddenly, staggering, the more cowering fell on the sea surface. The crimson blood stained the void. "Give me back." Pontus looked awe-inspiring, the body erupting a very different from before. The vastness of power and endless sea water was a heaving attraction, but not swept out. Rather, as if taken by the vessel like a source into Ponto's demonically handsome body. Primordial sea god was like a dark abyss, constantly devouring and drawing the surrounding seawater. His aura instantly broke through the extreme of the main god, stepping into a brand new field. This is the original aura. The gods were appalled. On the top of Olympus, sitting high on the throne of Zeus, eye-holes couldn't help but shrink. Staring at the terrifying abyss of Pontos that devoured the seas and the ocean, he said in a low voice. "It really exceeds the limit of the divine Lord, but it is not completely original. Pontos, I finally understand some of your details." And on the ocean, holding a trident to watch the battle, Poseidon, also looking awe-inspiring, muttered. "No wonder my sea emperor authority cannot completely suppress you, so you have been considered to have stepped into the original, so you actually cannot be considered a sea god." His words fell, and the infinite sea water below suddenly tumbled up. Like a cauldron full of water, it was shaken and turned upside down. Not the sea was stirred, but the bottom of the sea was trembling. The dark and deep bottom of the deep sea suddenly cracked a dark mouth, forming a huge trench and spewing like the heavy breathing of the earth, raging sweep towards Apollo. Golden eyes stared. Apollo looked deeply at Pontos and said in a deep voice. "So you are a geological sea god, not the primordial sea god. What was a primordial sea god? Nature was a god who had authority over sea water, waves, whirlpools, etc. But in fact, all the gods had overlooked one point. Ocean converged in a low basin. Primordial sea god, Pontos, was never the god of ocean side. He was the god of earth. He symbolized the huge basin that carried endless seawater. Like his brother Uriah, lord of the mountains, who was the symbol of mountain. After all, we are all children born from the earth, so we are all part of the earth. Feeling the surprised gaze of the gods, Pontos' demonic cheeks held a smile. Uranus, the primordial god of sky, Pontus, the primordial god of sea, and Uriah, the lord of mountains, were three brothers who were different from the other children of Gaia, Earth Mother. They were conceived by Earth Mother alone. Essentially, they were individuals split from the earth. Just like the night and darkness that were born from chaos. Only chaos was more powerful than the earth, birthing the night and darkness that had reached the original realm. And the sky, ocean, and mountains birthed by the earth were not truly primordial. You are half primordial. Apollo's golden eyes seemed to pierce through time and see through all the secrets of the world, and he said to Pontos in silence. At the same time, his figure flashed coldly and quickly approached Oceanus. Boom! The light of the stars shone brightly, and the majestic fist power thunderously covered the top of Oceanus' head. Pontos' deep eyes were lowered, and his divine body was like a dark abyss, swallowing a limitless amount of sea water and blocking in front of Apollo's fist. Boom! The terrifying power of the fist, which was almost the original power, poured out around Pontos like a star falling to the ground, but he only stirred up a huge wave of water. Pontos' demonic body was not moving at all. You do not understand, the original realm is very different heaven and earth from the main god. My divine body has long gone beyond mere matter and energy, but a part of the world's composition, your fist is even stronger, can you shake the whole world? Staring at the golden figure in front of him, Pontos' figure echoed in a ghostly way. Unexpectedly, Apollo suddenly laughed. It is the source of authority, itself is the composition of the world, such a realm is indeed not able to be shaken by mere power, but you are not the original. Bang bang bang. The power of light erupted dazzlingly, Apollo's golden figure spun brilliantly, and his awe-inspiring fist shook the universe. The powerful force rained down on Pontos' demonic body. The primordial sea god's expression gradually changed. As Apollo said, he was not in the true primordial realm. Half of the primordial, he had part of the characteristics of primordial god, but also still had a divine body and spiritual body. As long as the power was strong enough, it will be able to hurt him. The lower gods did not have that kind of power, and the main gods did not need to deal with him in this way. He was invincible against the existence below the primordial realm. But he met Apollo today. A true monster. The vast power of the etheric divine body and the power of the light were stacked up furiously, and the majestic power comparable to that of the primordial realm was poured into Pontus' demonic body. Finally, Pontos' face changed, and he turned sideways to avoid Apollo's attack. Apollo's mouth showed a faint smile, did not continue to attack Pontos but coldly looked at Oceanus, who took advantage of his duel with Pontos and quietly fled to the distance to watch the battle. Boom! A punch that pierced through space coldly hit Oceanus's forehead. The oceanic lord looked stunned with resignation, remorse, and despair as his divine body gradually cracked.